Way Home was really fun. I actually recently looked at some footage from that after party we did at Way Home, and I remember being like, before that, we were so nervous because we just didn't know. We thought everyone was gonna leave because it was right after the Frank Ocean performance. So I'm
Wow.
like watching Frank Ocean like in my feelings, and then
Yeah.
realizing like in 15 minutes we're about to like DJ this after party. Like maybe everyone's gonna go, maybe it's only gonna be 10 people. We had no idea, and it was the quite opposite. Like it was packed. It was the energy was so hype. It was amazing. That one was really 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 fun.
Bad luck to talk on these rides. Mine on the road, your dilated eyes. Watch the clouds float, white Ferrari. Had a good time. 16, how was I supposed to know?
You're tuned into This Broken Mixtape, the podcast that rewinds and presses play on the soundtrack to your life. I'm your host, Justin Lee. This week on the show, we have a very special guest co-host. It's our good friend, Tara Kannangara. I always pause before your last name.
Most people do. Don't worry. I'm used to that deep pause.
Our listeners will remember Tara from a few shows back. I think it was, we posted that one back in March or April.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's really great having you co-host. As you guys all know by now, Jeff has left the show. Yeah, I think what we're going to try to do with this Broken Mixtape is bring in new guest co-hosts and maybe at some point find someone more permanent. But, Tara, it's really great having you.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
Yeah,
It's a difficult proposition because when you have a vibe with someone else and a guest comes in, you want to make sure that the chemistry is just right, even if it's just for one interview. So, yeah, I do appreciate you bringing me in.
Oh, absolutely. And Jeff and I were talking after we interviewed you a few months ago that you're just you're like a real person. It's very easy to talk to you. You're very connected. You're very in the moment, which is something that anyone can appreciate. But aside from that, you're obviously passionate about music as being an artist yourself. And pairing you up with our guests this week, Dre Ngozi. You guys share a lot in common. Definitely, like, health and wellness is important to both of you, as is music, as is a lot of things.
Yeah, it's true. It was interesting speaking to her this week because I really had to hold back and not just jump in and say, me too. Oh, I've done that. Or I'm like that. It was remarkable how many times I had to hold my tongue because I really identify with her in many ways. I mean, obviously she's her own person and I'm my own person, but I really felt like there was so much connective tissue when I was talking to her. And she's a really inspiring artist. She's one of those voices I feel like we're going to see in the future. And I think she's the right type of role model for any type of person, but particularly women and women of color. I know that term is coming up a lot these days, but it's coming up for a reason, and it's coming up because it's important. And so speaking to her and her speaking on a few of those things was really enlightening for me, as well as clarifying as someone who has been through some similar things. So it was a really wonderful interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're hoping that you can come on some other shows with us. I know that you're pretty busy being an artist yourself, playing a lot of gigs, but then also you just recently launched your own podcast with a friend of yours. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. I recently started a podcast with my best friend, Kira May, who's also an artist. And it's called Grillith Fair, which is a take on the very famous music festival Lilith Fair, which was about promoting female musicians. And it's an interesting name, Lilith Fair, because it's also problematic in a few ways, in that when it came out, that particular festival, while it was really great to feature a lot of women, it was also problematic because a lot of people thought that the festival was a little silly. I think they didn't take a lot of those artists seriously when it was born out of a need to see more women in the industry and women headlining festivals. And I think they tried to bring back the Lilith Fair Festival. And I think they ran into a few issues because the idea of feminism and bringing forth female artists or female identifying artists, those specifications have changed, like in the way that we see women portrayed in the music industry. It's not like the way it was in the 90s when you actually would mostly see, not meaning to generalize, but you'd mostly see white women playing folk songs. Like now, the way that the industry has moved, it's shining a light on a lot more different types of music in marginalized communities, women, and so on and so forth. So Guerrilla Fair is just a take on, like, it's shining a light on all marginalized peoples, women, people of color, LGBTQ plus. But it's also a nod to Lilith Fair because we do understand its original intentions, that it just wanted to bring forth more work and shine a light on more women. So yeah, it's a complicated name.
When I first read the name, okay, Grill, I thought at first it was like, is it a nod to hip hop, like grills? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we thought about that. We actually, this is kind of a funny story. Actually, has nothing to do with grills, although we get that question a lot. But my friend Kira, she has a sister who would name her stuffed animals normal names, but add GR to the beginning of the name.
Okay.
So she had a doll or a stuffed animal and she named it Grachel. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just adding GR to any kind of name. And so when we were brainstorming names, Kira just yelled out Grillith Fair. She's like, Grillith Fair. And I was like, that's it. That's the name. And she said, what? I don't think she thought it was awesome at the time, but I thought it was genius when it came out of her mouth. And so, yeah, and then Grillith Fair was born, and it's been, I mean, we're like a baby pod compared to you guys. We're just learning the ropes, but it's been so enlightening talking to all these artists that we love and respect, and we hope to keep doing it for as long as possible.
Yeah, but I think what makes your podcast so interesting and different than all the other music podcasts out there is that you two are both singers and artists in your own right. So to have that perspective, that insider knowledge is really important when you're talking to other artists. Yeah.
There's a lot of, again, like I said before, there are many points during our interviews where we can truly relate to some of the things that they've been through. But we also feel like we grow as artists because sometimes they'll bring up an idea that we've never heard of that's kind of connected to something that we understand. And so it really broadens our horizons. It makes us better artists as a byproduct, talking to all these amazing people. So it's forced me to go back to the drawing board and take a look at myself as an artist and what I'm contributing, which is very helpful. It's good to get that kind of perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So shifting gears here, we have the second year anniversary of This Broken Mixtape. Mm-hmm. It's going to be on July 3rd at Dundas Video at 8 o'clock. You can look at our social media to find out more details, but it's a storytelling event. And what we're doing is we've invited past guests and some new people to talk about one album that played a meaningful role in their life and very specific memory that's attached to that album. And you're going to be one of our speakers, storytellers.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Maybe you could give us a little preview of what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I'll be talking about the miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Yes.
And I feel like that record has come up on so many top 100 lists, top 10 lists for other artists. And I think, and not to give away everything I'm going to say on that day, but I think of it as such a complete piece of work. Like everything that I've felt as a human being seems to be encompassed in that record in different shades. And the way she articulates it, or her feelings or her work, makes it feel like it's only for me somehow. Like it's this private connection I have with her, but clearly it's meant for everybody, like because so many people have found so much value in her work. So the fact that I feel like she's only talking to me, I think is like one of the hardest things that you can do as an artist, to reach people on a cellular level as she does somehow. And she's such an enigmatic person, Lauryn Hill. Like, she's so interesting, mired with controversy. But this one record, I don't think I've heard anyone say anything bad about this record. I can't think of it, and if they have, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, it really is the rumors, Fleetwood Mac's rumors of our generation, because
Yeah.
I don't know a single person that didn't grow up listening to that record, has a copy of it on CD or vinyl or tape or whatever. It is my like all-time top 5 album for sure.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. I use the word extraordinary a lot, but because I know so many extraordinary people and listen to extraordinary things, and this is definitely on that list because I think it's like one of those records that's just going to stand the test of time.
Sure. Well, I mean, it already has 20 years, 21 years now.
Yeah, I
so,
forget that it's
yeah.
that old, but it feels so. That's another great thing about music that is that good, is that it feels like it could be new anytime you listen to it.
For sure.
So that's definitely the quality I get from that record.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to hearing you talk at the Dundas Video event. And without further ado, here is our interview with Dre Ngozi. This week on the podcast, we have DJ and producer Dre Ngozi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show.
It's still kind of early-ish, so you're getting my like sexy morning voice. 11 a.m. on a Saturday.
So your last name, Ngozi, it means blessing in Nigerian, from what I gather.
Yes.
You've certainly had a lot of blessings over the last few years, especially. You played a lot of high-profile shows. You've done a lot of great festivals. Just to name a few: Way Home, Scratch Bastard, Barbecue, Red Bull, Sound Select, Boiler Room. I mean, the list is endless. And, just out of all these shows, was there like a particular favorite of yours?
Way Home was really fun. I actually recently looked at some footage from that after party we did at Way Home, and I remember being like, before that, we were so nervous because we just didn't know. We thought everyone was going to leave because it was right after the Frank Ocean performance.
Wow.
So I'm like watching Frank Ocean like in my feelings, and then realizing like in 15 minutes we're about to like DJ this after party. Like maybe everyone's gonna go, maybe it's only gonna be 10 people. We had no idea, and it was the quite opposite. Like it was packed. The energy was so hype. It was amazing. That one was really, really, really fun. One recently that I just did was C2 Montreal. I don't know if you know what that is. I had never really heard of it before.
No,
but
I'm
it's
not
like
familiar
a
with it.
really big and dope convention for entrepreneurs. So like Spike Lee was there talking, and Will.i.am was talking, and people who do, creative things and have found ways to make money doing it, So I did like an opening set on their last day of the 3-day, I don't know, whatever you call it. And it was super hype. That was probably one of my like best and favorite sets. It was my first time playing in Montreal, which is wild because I lived there for 3 years, but this was before I was DJing. And so I was really excited about that because I find the Montreal crowd or just the energy, even when I was living there, was always so much more open to different styles of music. So that always really excites me. Like I hate being put into a box. And so I had a 2-hour set, and I was like, you know what, we're going everywhere. We're going to take a little journey. So that one was really fun. I mean, they're all fun in different ways, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a long-winded answer. We're doing a lot of those today.
No, that was good. I feel like DJs and producers are true tastemakers because you have to know so much about so many different types of music.
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Like, there's some DJs that don't. Like they don't in the sense like they only play, 1 or 2 genres of music. And that's totally fine. Like you're well versed. I when I do go out, which is rare when I'm not working, and I'm hearing like trap DJs, I'm learning so much because I'm like, this is just a style that I don't know. I'm like, I don't know these songs. Like I have no idea what this is, and I'm like taking notes. I'm like, what are the kids listening to these days? You know what I mean? So like yes and no. You kind of find the genres that resonate with you and go from there. That's how I feel. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. Are there any, I always wonder this with producers and DJs, because I know a few, and some of them are really passionate about trends, what's happening in music today. And are there any trends that you're hearing right now that you could do without.
That you do without.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know if it's like, I don't want to hate on trap. Like, I didn't think it was going to last this long, to be honest. When it really started to come about, maybe, I don't know, 2012, 2013, I was like, oh, this is just a little, okay, we're trying something new. It's like, it's not going to last. And then it's like, it's still here. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't hate it. But it could be a little bit more diverse to me. Like, a lot of it kind of just starts to sound the same after like 15 minutes of like a trap set. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get same drums. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Oh, I sound like such a hater, but
No, that's.
but sometimes I get down to it. It really just depends on the track, you know.
Would you feel that like we're kind of at the tail end of the trap
I hope
phase?
so,
It feels like
man.
it feels like it's gradually phasing out.
It's been
people
like
are,
7 years though.
Yeah, it has.
Like,
It's been a long
had
time.
a long run. I think so. What's kind of becoming a bit more popular is this like island rhythm Afro stuff has really been taking off the past, I'd say, since like 2017. So that really resonates with me just because of my heritage. I'm like, oh, sick. People are actually into these like the type of music I basically grew up on. It's cool to see other groups like getting super hyped to it and having a good time with it. I was like, oh, that's nice. I like that.
So you started recording your own radio show at the age of 9 on a Sesame.
So
Yeah, tell us about that.
like I've always been into music, and it's funny because like I'm not young, so I've lived many lives. So a lot of people only know me now as like Dre Ngozi, the DJ or whatever, but I've lived many lives before that. But ever since I was a kid, I've always been into radio and always been into music. So back in the day, talking like mid 90s, I would basically like record songs off the radio, whatever like hot songs, pop songs were playing, and then I would kind of re-record and do my own intro and outro of the tracks on my little like Sesame Street recorder. And it was called my radio show was called Cool Andy 13. And,
I love that. That's
it was
so
really
great.
just for me and my mom. I was an only child, so I had a lot of time and like no one to really play with. So that was like what I did. One of the many things I did in my spare time was
Where did that name come from? Cool Andy 20.
One of my nicknames in the past was Andy. I think I was just always looking for a like less femme name back in the day. I didn't even really like, now I'm Dre, but before it was Andy. My real name's Andrea. Like I was just always trying to, I guess, run away from that, even at like 9 years old. So Andy, and then cool. It was the mid 90s, man. Like it was cool with a K. Like it was just that.
Cool
was
with
just
a
the, That was just
K.
the times. Yeah.
Did your mom ever give you feedback on your?
No,
your
because
tapes?
it so wasn't her world, but she was so impressed. She still talks about it like to this day. Like I held that one tape for so long, and I think I recorded over it in my teens. I was reckless and just wasn't thinking ahead, but I wish I still had the like original recording of that, because my microphone was my headphones for like my little Walkman was like what I would talk into really close, as close as I could. So yeah.
I remember my mom, whenever I did anything musical when I was younger, she was always like your mother, impressed and happy that I was doing something productive in some sense,
Yeah.
right? So she was always like really encouraging. And anytime I would show her something, she didn't really have a ton to say other than like, that's great. Like, that's great. Like, you know, like a true mama pride, you know?
You know, that's actually more than most, because, you know, when I talk to a lot of my friends who are artists now, they didn't necessarily have that support growing up. Their parents are like, art, like, what are you talking about? Like, do your math homework and stop this foolishness. Like, I was so blessed to not, my mom has always been supportive, but I'm learning now that not a lot of people necessarily had that, or they wouldn't get a, hey, that's great, or good job from their parents. So it's kind of a luxury, I feel.
That's definitely luxury. I think,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, coming from my background, because I'm South Asian and there aren't that many artists doing the type of thing that I'm doing, especially back in Sri Lanka, which is where my
Yeah,
family's from.
okay.
So a lot of my relatives are confused. They're not necessarily negative, but there's no concept of it because I play the trumpet and I sing. So it's like an interesting yet awkward combination. So whenever I talk to my relatives that don't live here and don't really have a true concept of what I'm doing, they kind of look a little sideways. They're like,
what do you do exactly?
exactly.
What is that?
Yeah.
Are you going to make money? Are you paying your bills with that? Mm-hmm. Always the main concern. Mm-hmm. I get it.
So then at what point did you start DJing? And
so when I first moved to Toronto, because I'm originally from Ottawa, and then 3 years in Montreal, when I moved here, so 2007, apparently I love dates because I've said it like 5 different dates so far. So I keep track of things. I started dabbling in like scratching when I moved here. So in my last year of university, I did sound design, and I always wanted to be a producer and wanted to be a DJ. So when I came here, I had the opportunity to, because I was dating a DJ at the time. And so I started then, and then we broke up, and then that ended because in those days, there weren't a lot of spaces for women to even like access that at all. I only knew of like maybe 2 women DJs at the time. And so that it kind of fell. I just didn't have the access to even practice or keep learning. And then it came back around in like 2015, just because of technology and advancements, and things became more accessible and a little bit more affordable, and, times have changed. So I was like, oh yeah, this was like a thing that I used to like to do. Like I had a friend kind of remind me of that, and it kind of just went from there. I like DJ'd my best friend's birthday, and that was it. That's how that happened, and here I am. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you had a moment in your development as an artist where it felt like maybe there wasn't a space for you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, timing is, I really believe in timing. And then sometimes I'm like, oh man, imagine if I had the opportunities back then, like how much further I would be in this and that. But then I also wouldn't have had the experience that I had in the meantime that made me I hope a more well-rounded human being. And I believe in timing, but I don't believe in time.
It's very wise.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm older, so I've learned some things. And now I'm going to go on a little tangent, but in talking to a lot of younger people in their early 20s, I keep hearing a similar thing where like they feel like they're running out of time. Like if they're not hustling and grinding, like what are we doing? And I'm like, you're 19, 20, like you were just born yesterday. Like relax. Like this is the time for you to explore. Like you have so much time to grind and hustle when you have real responsibilities like a mortgage or like children, or your parents are getting older and you have to take care of them. Grind then. Like learn, mess up now. Like don't stress so much. You know what I mean? I learned so much in my 20s by making mistakes and not knowing what I'm doing and trying different things and being okay with that if it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Anyway, what was that tangent? Whatever.
So let's rewind here and let's talk about, some of the earliest memories that you have connected to music. So just growing up, like what kind of stuff would your parents, your mom be playing in the house?
What's really great about my childhood, and I think about this often, like I said, I was an only child, but I also grew up with a single mom, which meant that I was also raised by a lot of other people, and that greatly influenced my musical taste. So like I had a francophone babysitter for 10 years who loved oldies. So I grew up on like Beach Boys and Elvis, Elton John, and lots of country music. Like I was a huge country music fan as a kid. So she taught me that. And at home, my mom's from Trinidad, and so I grew up in West Indian culture, and so it was a lot of calypso and soca, obviously, and gospel on Sundays was God's day, and so I grew up with a lot of that. And then my uncle, who's really like my older brother, started to introduce me to hip-hop and R&B. So around like 10, 11, I was a huge hip-hop fan. And my summers in Toronto, I had older cousins in Toronto, so every summer I'd come here, and it's where I experienced like blackness, you know what I mean? And then I had family in Brooklyn, that I went every like 3 times a year, and that's where I experienced more blackness. And so like hip hop shit, like that was my I was like 9, just rocking my like Sony Walkman, just like listening to like Biggie and Tupac and like Snoop Dogg and Salt and Pepper. I was obsessed with Salt and Pepper in like 96. And then yeah, when I went to university in Montreal, it expanded my music tastes even more. Like I said, that city is really great in just learning about various genres. So that's when I really got into like house music. They had a huge like Latinx community there, so a lot of salsa music was happening there. And they also loved their old school rock and roll. So I was getting into like AC/DC and Pink Floyd, like shit I hadn't heard growing up, because where would I hear that in a Caribbean household, you know? And I loved it. I became obsessed with like the Doors. I was a huge Doors fan in university. So, yeah, I think it's definitely influenced the kind of music I DJ now. And I think that's kind of my style. Like people are like, wow, you literally like, you mixed like Cameo with Destra. I don't even know like how you did that. But I'm like, I love all of it. So I'm going to figure out a way to like go from, you know, old school, like 80s, you know, pop music or whatever to a soca track. Like I'll find a way.
Yeah, I think some of my favorite DJs are able to blend in different genres, you know, and it shouldn't make sense on paper, but it does when you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think of Questlove, where that guy just like takes you on this like journey, and it's and you always learn something when you see that guy DJ. He's playing tonight, actually. He's doing a free show.
Get out of here.
Yeah. I can send you the link. It's just it's at the Walrus. And it's like Reverse, who have been past guests on our show.
Yeah.
Scratch Bastard,
Of course.
who, you know.
Yeah.
And who else? Diggy, the DJ, is playing.
Sick.
But Quest will probably go on at like midnight, I think.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
didn't
free
even
show.
hear about that.
I'll send it to you guys.
That's
you.
incredible.
That's great.
I think I heard whisperings about it. I'm like, nah.
You believe it? There's no
It's been a
way.
while since he's done a DJ set here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's going to be sick.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's funny that, oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It's like working out this chemistry. It's so funny that you mentioned all of those influences, because I was like checking out your music, and there's so many things that I can place and not place, which I think is a great thing for an artist, because it suggests some kind of unique quality. And it made me think when I was listening to your music, and also the music that you wrote for films, which I'm super interested in, it made me think, man, she's listened to a lot of stuff. I just get a sense that she has.
Yeah. You're talking about like films. That's like kind of one of the next phases. I'm going to dive into a little bit more in the next year and a half. So I'll be working on one of my best friends, her feature film. She's about to shoot like this week. So I'll be helping to kind of curate the music for that, and then probably do a couple of original compositions. I'm classically trained in piano, so I think that's where that comes from. And I've always been super interested in soundscapes and how you can tell stories through sound. That's like basically what I did in university. Like I'd go around with a field, like a recorder basically, and just like record sound on the train, and then kind of just make like a 11-minute soundscape and story from whatever recordings I had on a mini disc.
What are some of your favorite film scores?
Oh God, what's that movie? Birdman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Antonio Sanchez. He plays
man.
drums on that. It's incredible.
So good.
It's incredible.
That blew my mind. That's the first one that comes to mind. All the music in Samsara is really great. I'm just also like a hippie, so anything that has to do with like spirituality and like world and feelings, I'm into it. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your social media. I think that, as an artist, as a DJ, social media is like a necessary evil. You have to promote yourself. Otherwise, like nobody's really going to know who you are. But what I love about your social media, particularly Instagram, is that it's inspirational, but it's not cheesy. Like I'm so sick of. Okay, I have this like vivid image of the cheesy inspirational quote that you see in these posters,
Yeah.
right? And it's not that. That's what I love about it. It's like every time you read a post of Dre's, you feel like you're learning something. You feel like you're inspired, but it doesn't feel like ugh, like
I really appreciate that. Yeah, love-hate relationship with social media. It's such a weird, complicated tool. I think because it always makes you start thinking about like your brand, like what your brand is. That's like always a question now. I'm like, this is just a science I know nothing about, like marketing. Like I don't fucking know anything about that. And so it's like, it's always trying to figure out like, how do you use this weird platform to, share what you're interested in or passionate about or what you're thinking with the world, and you're always nervous about how it's going to be received. Does anyone give a shit? Like, do I even give a shit? Like, these are questions I think about like every 30 minutes. And what I'm realizing is just like, I just have to do me. I don't know. I don't care. Like, I'm just gonna like what I write about in my posts. It's often what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing or what I'm learning like that day,
Right.
or based off of a conversation that I had with someone or conversations that keep coming up. And I'm like, okay, maybe like I'm working through this right now. Maybe other people are as well. And I'm always like, is this going to resonate with people? I don't know. So I'm always like surprised when folks are like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed to read right now. Or it happens when I'm out at a party or something and be like, oh my God, thank you so much for your last post or whatever. And I was like, I don't remember what my last post was, but you're welcome. Cool. And then I kind of try to play with it a little bit. Like I don't like to take things too seriously. Like everyone's taking shit so seriously. Like it's not that deep ever. And I delete stuff all the time too. I'm like, I don't want this out right now. Like, let's just get rid of that. And I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You seem really joyful because I
it.
recently followed you and I checked out your Instagram, and you have a joyful quality to how you post. And I don't know how, and it's always engineered, as we all know. Like social media is engineered.
Yeah.
But you do have a sense. Someone told me a long time ago, because I went through this phase of getting really down about social media and obsessing about what people would like and what people were looking for and who to tag and how to tag.
Yeah, all of that.
And a friend told me to post something that just makes you feel good, that makes you feel like when you see it, you feel good about who you are. And that is actually something I've really taken quite seriously. So now when I post a picture, it's something that even if it's as simple as like, I feel like I look really nice today.
Yeah, post that.
Yeah, like, and celebrate it, because especially, I think, not to draw gender lines, but women are so hard on themselves all the time. So to actually have a moment in a day or in a week where you post a picture where you feel good.
Totally.
And I feel like that translates to other people. Like people will notice in the way that I feel like when I look at your pictures, I'm like, this looks like a woman who feels really good. Even if maybe you don't, what comes across is something that is really inspiring to people that look at it. So like that is like I really have taken so much from that. Like
that's
small
great.
piece,
I try to balance it because a lot of people do say that about me, like I'm a positive, which is funny because I'm like not. Like I'm actually like the darkest bitch ever. Like I'm so dark. And I try to sprinkle that a little bit in my, like, to keep it 100, because like you said, like social media, especially Instagram, is so curated. People are just showing like the best sides of their life, and I don't always want to do that because it's not how life is, and I want people to know that, like I try to talk a lot about like anxiety and like social anxiety, and people would never think that that's something that I struggle with and something I struggle with for most of my life, because they see me like when I'm DJing, I'm like dancing around and wilding out or whatever. But to be honest, it's like how I work through it, because I'm inherently a performer, and that's how I just like my mind goes somewhere else in those moments, and my anxiety kind of dissolves a little bit. But as soon as that's done, it kicks right back in, and I think it's important to kind of like let people know the reality of shit. It's not always fun, and it's not always easy. Like I'm before a gig, I'm very anxious, like I'm stressed like almost every time, but people never see that or would never know that. you know.
That's a really inspiring thing to post as well. Like I struggle with anxiety quite significantly, and so it is a journey. And so whenever I feel like I see people talking about it in an Instagram post or however they choose to, it does give me guidance. You know, I like that concept of not always posting something super positive, but also just posting something real about a struggle, like
Just
to not
real.
feel so alone. You know?
Exactly that. It's a reminder that you're not alone. You're not the only one trying to figure it out and work through it. So, yeah.
Well, it seems like health and wellness is really important to you, and not just in your social media, but you also practice. You're a licensed acupuncturist.
It's too much,
and
man. Like, it was too much. Yeah.
so and also shiatsu therapist.
Yeah.
Do you think there's well, actually, two questions. Do you play any like music during your sessions, or is it just quiet?
No.
No?
Like, do I play any of like my own
No,
stuff,
no,
or
no,
do
like,
I
just-
do I play music?
Like any kind of music, like recorded music playing in the background?
Yeah, Tibetan
yeah.
singing bowls is my like go-to. I listen to that most of the time
Okay.
on my own time. Like, people ask me like, what do you listen to at home? Because you're always like, meditation music, to be honest, like first thing in the morning and most of the time.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. Because I've always, I've been learning about Buddhism since I was like 17, and so Eastern philosophy and that's how I got into Eastern medicine, was just my love for it. So, and I think it's part of working through that anxiety stuff we were just talking about. The world is a very noisy place.
Yeah.
Very distracting, and you can get lost very quickly. So I often listen to things that will ground me. Binaural beats, I really got into that a lot. Alpha waves, all that kind of stuff, beta waves, this past year. And it's helped me a lot in just like focusing and concentrating and not getting wrapped up in the tornado of life, So yeah, in my practice, which is like such an other extreme, like I have this DJ hype life, and then the other side of it is like is much more.
Do your clients
serene.
know that you also DJ?
Yeah, because that's how they know that I do like the massage and the acupuncture, is because they see me on social media from the DJing stuff. And it's hard to separate, and I would honestly prefer it to be separate, because it changes the dynamic a little bit, because they're like, oh, I only know you as this like kind of out there extroverted person, and then in my sessions you're getting a different Dre, like you're getting like very serious, not very serious, but like much more calm, much more relaxed, much more witchy vibes. I do energy work, so it's different frequency altogether. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about this sort of connection between music and health and wellness?
This is something that I started thinking about this when I was like trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, which actually is always a question. But I had to narrow it down, and like, what are the things that I'm passionate about? What are the things that excite me? And it's always been art, and not just music, because I've done all other forms of art, and like healing and just energy and making people feel better. So I'm thinking, there was one time, actually this was the first major gig I did, my friend's birthday party, and someone came up to me, and she was like, had been one of my massage clients, and she was like, Dre, like what you're doing right now, like what's happening on the dance floor is like such a form of healing. And I'm like, bet, I get it now. It's all just energy. You know what I mean? Like everything is just energy. So when it is a party or whatever, and people are able to forget about their problems for a few hours and just kind of like let go and just be free, that's what I want, and that's what I also want in my sessions of like healing. Is just like forget about your problems for an hour and let go of whatever your body is holding on to, whatever your spirit is holding on to, whatever traumas you're holding on to. We're just gonna like, not forgetting about it, but giving space for it to just kind of exit you. whatever doesn't serve you anymore. It's getting real hippy dippy right now.
No, we were talking, honestly, we were talking about it before you got here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were talking about mindfulness and meditation. Just because I think everybody, I feel like I'm running into a lot of artists these days, including running into myself, that like artists do need to take a second and be mindful of what's going on in their minds, their bodies. And the way you talk about letting go, and also like very wise words about not necessarily forgetting, but holding space, suggests to me that you've spent a lot of time thinking about mindfulness. And if you could talk about mindfulness, because I am so into mindfulness, has become a very trendy word, but it's trendy because it's good. Like I stand by it a lot because it's given me a lot of, energy, and it's given me the tools to function better as an artist and even just as a human being. So I know you were kind of just talking a little bit about it, but how has that kind of affected your art practice?
You know, I've actually never thought about like my specific definition of mindfulness. Like I said, I've been like practicing meditation since I was a teenager. And, you know, I'm extreme. So I'll go to I went to like a 24-hour meditation workshop at a Buddhist temple where you don't sleep for 24 hours and you don't talk and you just meditate. And it was like, man, I suggest everyone try that. I always say when you talk about bliss, or when you read about like the concept of bliss, that was the first time, like walking out of that was the first time I've ever experienced that in my life. There's no like drug or anything that has ever brought about that feeling. Like I walked out of there on no sleep. I had been up for 36 hours and was just like, wow, I feel so light. And I was like, what is this about? And I was like, oh, like all the chatter in your brain is so exhaustive. Like it's so tiring and it's so unnecessary. And when you learn and really push yourself to quiet your mind, you allow things to kind of reconfigure, you know what I mean? And rework itself. Because we love distraction. We really do. And this is something I've learned just in my everyday life and in my practice is like, a lot of people don't like to deal with their shit. You know, that's why a lot of people project onto other people, and it's like, you're the reason why I feel like this, or you're the reason why my life is like this, or you know what I mean? It's like, okay, maybe, but like you also have to take accountability for your role in it and what aspects of you are feeding into this dynamic as well. And most people don't want to hear that shit. Even when I like try to even post about stuff like that I've noticed like decline in like likes or viewings because it's like, oh, this is too real. They're not ready. Like they're not, it's like accountability. It's like, it's not hot yet. Like mindfulness might be hot, but like accountability, like we're not there yet.
Yeah, that's because it means you need to look hard at yourself. Ain't nobody want to
do that yet.
Right?
No,
I actually,
no.
brief aside, I went to, because my family's, they're practicing Buddhists. So I grew up with that. And we went to a no talking retreat.
Amazing.
And I went when I was 13 or 14.
Great age to do that.
Yeah, which is a funny age because you don't know how it's affecting you in a concrete way, but you're taking it in as a sponge. It's so funny. Your story kind of touched me because I remember I couldn't speak. I wasn't allowed. And it was very challenging because I thought I had so many interesting things to say. But then when the retreat was done, I realized how wasteful my words were. I'm sure you experienced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I find that the older I get, like I do love to talk, but like oftentimes I don't really got anything meaningful to say to anyone. Like I'm much more particular about how much I give. I've noticed, like I should be talking, engaging more, but like, you know, I don't want to, and I don't have to. Like you don't have to if you don't want to. Like do your thing. I don't like to feel pressure to like. I'm a Leo, so like you ain't telling me to do nothing. Like you can try, but like nah, I don't want to, so it's not happening. I forget what the original question was, but like okay.
No, I like that you said you're a Leo. I love astrology.
I'm obsessed.
I think everything you guys have been saying right now just reminded me that, or made me think about how like throughout the day you have so many conversations that are just filler. You know, and it's like, if you think about that, like how much of our time is wasted just by like small talk, like, you know, and I guess it's a something that's a necessity just because it's how humans are. If you don't know one person, you're going to talk about the weather just as a form of connection. But there's so many other things two strangers can talk about.
Sure.
And I think that's why, like, we've been doing this podcast for 2 years now. The reason why I love doing it is because I'm able to have meaningful conversations with really inspiring people, and you don't really get that very often. So
I'm with you on I think when exploring my social anxiety, at the core of it was like I had no interest in small talk, and so I didn't know then how to conduct myself in public spaces, because I'm like, I don't want to just talk surface stuff, but I'm here, and now I'm like getting stressed out about it. And it took me years, and the older I got, to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go right in and be deep with people in the first 30 seconds. You know what I mean? I'd be like, how are you? Like, even though I don't even like, but like, how are you? You know what I mean? Like, how are you doing? You know, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about this other, I don't care about the weather, like whatever.
Right.
Let's talk with some real shit,
Yeah.
you know? And maybe it throws some people off, maybe it doesn't. And then sometimes I don't say anything at all. I'll go into a space and like, I'm not saying anything. And then someone will literally just pour their whole life. Like, oh, I just met you, but okay, I'll take it. Like, you felt safe in that moment to tell me some really like deep personal things about yourself. And I'm a complete stranger to you. I kind of take that as a compliment. Like, you read something about me that you felt comfortable enough to do that. And it's like an honor to share like your vulnerability in that moment, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What do you have coming up? Whether it's shows, are you working on an album right now?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that on my way here. Like, I thought I was gonna, life, man, like, you have a plan, and then like the universe is like, nah, girl, like, I got the blueprints, like, just chill. So I thought I was gonna finish a project in the spring. Maybe it was a little ambitious, but I'm gonna push it to who knows when. Probably the winter. And I don't even really know what that project is. Like, I'm working on music. It's kind of all over the place. It's a bad habit of mine. Like, I'll start something and not finish, and I'll forget about it for like a couple months and come back to it. And I have trouble creating things that are cohesive because my brain I want to do everything all the time. Like, it's hard for me to just narrow things down. Yeah. So I'm still going to be working on that, producing and stuff. And people are asking me to share with them, and that's something I'm working on too. I'm not really good at sharing what I do. So that's one thing. And then working on scoring for this film. And who knows? I don't know. I might run away to Europe for a bit and just kind of, I want to do like my own personal like music retreat where I just go and like explore music elsewhere and see how that influences me. And I'd like to get back into actually play like instrumentation. Like I said, I played piano. I also dabble in guitar. Like, I miss playing actual instruments. So I want to get back to that as well. I want to keep going with like hosting. I want to see where that kind of goes. Like I said, I actually want to use my communications degree from Concordia at some point in my life. And then I'm also about to really dive deeper into like my acupuncture practice, because it kind of had to fall to the wayside a bit just because life was just getting really, I do a lot of stuff and trying to find the balance. So even though I just named like 10 things, I'm not making it easier on myself, because like I said, I want to do everything all the time. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm just always doing. It's kind of my goal, just keep doing stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Not meaning to digress, but I wanted to go on that because my best friend, she's really, really into astrology. She has like written out my natal chart, and so
nice.
I always ask, and sometimes people don't want to answer this question actually because they think of it as very personal. But what is your moon and rising sign?
Oh, this is not personal. I love
That's
it.
because I asked someone once and they're like, I don't know if I want to say.
I say it every day.
Great.
I'm a Taurus rising, and my moon is in Cancer. It's not great. Like, tough on the outside, but really I'm crying all the time. Yeah. I'm about to get I'm about to see an astrologer actually on Monday. I saw her 11 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, she's great. The whole birth chart stuff, she's about to like ruin my life in the best kind of way, I think. Because last time I cried for 3 hours in the entire session, I'm prepared to do the same and then go watch the Raptors game after and hope I'm okay.
That sounds like a transformative experience if I've ever heard one. Yeah.
I'm ready. It's about time. I'm down. But yeah, Taurus rising, just stubborn all around.
Yeah. I think that's a great combination. You don't think so?
Difficult in personal, like your romantic relationships, I think, because it's like you don't want to show that you have feelings, and then like, but you do. Like you don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't care, but like I do care.
Yeah.
I care deeply. It's hard. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was great. Great questions.
Hey, thank you. If you haven't done so already, visit thisbrokenmixtape.com to listen to this episode's Spotify playlist. There, you'll also find all our past episodes and playlists. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please take the time to subscribe, rate, and share our podcast on whichever streaming service you're listening to us on. And if you have any comments, feedback, or ideas for future guests, please connect to us through email, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find all our previous episodes on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and Stitcher. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.